Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is what can we do about invasive species? Obviously, there's a lot of different control methods that we can use. So for plants, a lot of times that means using herbicides, using mechanical removal. It might mean using fire. So for some fire-adapted ecosystems, doing prescribed burns can eliminate some of these invasive species if they're not fire tolerant, and the native species are fire tolerant. For some insects, we can use things like insecticides. But the best thing to do is to prevent them from getting here in the first place. There are very few extremely successful measures that have completely eliminated an invasive species. It's been shown that it can be done on small islands. It is possible to completely remove an invasive species. New Zealand is going to try to do that. New Zealand is a set of two larger islands and a bunch of smaller islands. And they have successfully removed invasive species from the really small islands. But they have a plan. They are trying to get rid of all the invasive species in New Zealand. And they're working very hard at it. They've been trying to control those brown tree snakes in Guam, and Guam is not a very big island, and they have not been successful. So even on small islands, it can be extremely difficult and extremely expensive to control invasive species. So prevention is the best thing to do. So I want you to think for a second, what are some ways we can keep invasive species from getting to new places? A few of them I've already mentioned. So pets, keep your pet indoors. Also, don't release your pets. If you don't want your pet anymore, it is your responsibility to find someone else to take them. But you should absolutely not let them go. In Florida, they've been very successful with some new campaigns where they have days where you can drop off unwanted pets for free and they find places to take them for you. Sometimes zoos can accept things, but a lot of times zoos already have too many things. Sometimes there are private collectors that are willing to take on other people's pets. There are also some organizations that rehabilitate and rehome, particularly some exotic pets. It's not so hard if you're talking about your cat, but if you're talking about like a large snake, like you bought a Burmese python or an anaconda and now you need to get rid of it because you can't take care of it anymore, it's much harder to rehome things like that. Another thing is to be really responsible when buying pets. So make sure that you know how long they're going to live. Do you anticipate being able to take care of this species for that long? Some people have suggested that people shouldn't have tortoises for pets because a lot of them can live to be 80 to 100 years old. So if you buy them as a hatchling, they may outlive you, especially if you're already an adult. And so that can be problematic as well. A lot of the issues come down to cleaning boats and be real responsible in certain industries. So I didn't mention this before, but a lot of large shipping boats take on ballast water. So they take water in to compensate for the fact that they don't have cargo on board, and then when they go to pick up the cargo, they let the water out when they're putting the cargo on as a counterweight kind of thing. But if they're pulling up water in one port and then letting it go in another port, that is a huge problem for transporting aquatic invasive species. So filtering that water and being really careful about that kind of thing is one way to prevent it. Cleaning boats, if you're somebody that boats around here, you want to make sure you clean any vegetation or anything growing off of your boat before you put it in a new body of water. And there are a lot of campaigns trying to get people to do that. Same thing with firewood. It's not a good idea to pick up firewood around your house and then drive to another state to go camping and burn that wood. That is a huge way that forest pests get spread around. And there's a lot of major insects and diseases that we're really concerned about getting to new forests. And so that's another way. There are lots of other things to be careful about, but those are some of the big ones.